Hello everyone. I hope you all are safe and healthy at the place wherever you are. A brief introduction about myself. I am Ashutosh Shukla. I am a software engineer by profession and by passion I am a space enthusiast. And today here I am to share some wonderful stories about our universe. But before I begin, I would like to express my gratitude towards Visamo family, towards Sudeshna ma'am, towards Ami ma'am for letting me become a part of this wonderful family. The place which we call Visamo, it's not just a place, it's actually the home where we come together to build something, to create something new. My journey with Visamo started in December 2018. I googled something where I googled about a place where I could go and share my knowledge, whatever little knowledge which I have gained over the course of my life, and I could share it with other people. And then I would like to thank Ami ma'am and Sudeshna ma'am again for giving me this opportunity to teach maths and science at every evening, which I find those wonderful time is missing from my life as of now. Now, as you all must be knowing that my topic is universe and its untold stories. But before I begin, I would like to tell something. Even though this year is not what we all have expected it to be, we are forced to be at our home. Some people are in isolation, some in quarantine. We are forced to leave our schools and colleges. But there is this one anecdote which I would like to share with you all. In 1665, bubonic plague was spreading like wildfire in London and the areas surrounding it. Everybody was asked to leave their job, their college, their school, and they were forced to be in quarantine or isolation so that they could be safe from the dangers which the plague was posing to all of them. There was this one man who didn't like it, but he was forced to be in isolation. So while he was in isolation, he used that time, and it could be an inspiration to all of us. He discovered that white light is not simply one single component. It is based of 7 different components. The one which we see in rainbow, all those 7 components are clearly visible whenever we see the rainbow in the sky. He demonstrated the same with the use of a prism. He created a dark room, made a point hole and passed light through it, and then placed the prism in the way of that light. And when he observed it on the ground, there were not a simple single ray. There were 7 different components. If you still could not guess his name, I would like to tell something more about him. He was the one who invented calculus while being in isolation. If it is still a mystery to you, there is this anecdote about Apple and gravity. Yes, he was the great Sir Isaac Newton who discovered gravity, who discovered prism, who discovered the scattering of light, and who invented calculus while being in isolation. So, if we could not do something like that, we can at least try to achieve something which we have not achieved till now. And one more thing, if you are a space enthusiast or if you like to gaze at night sky, then if there is a clear sky, please go out on any night and look upwards towards heaven. You will see the meteor showers. Yes, we are having the Aquarius meteor shower at this point of a year, and it will be throughout the August. So if you think you are not getting the chance to see it, just wait patiently and observe the sky. Now coming back to my topic, universe and its untold stories. Well, in our long forgotten knowledge or our mythology, we knew a lot of things about universe and its space. For example, we have Kumbh Mela, which is celebrated once every 12 years. If you see the logic behind it, it is based on the revolution cycle of Jupiter. Jupiter has a revolution cycle of 12 years. That means it takes 12 years to revolve around the sun. So whenever the Jupiter is in Leo constellation, we have Kumbh Mela in Ujjain. So our forefathers knew this, and based on that knowledge, they created this simple occasion where we all could come and enjoy the festivities. But as our modern knowledge and modern astronomy suggest, I would like to take you back to the 2500 years ago, to a place, a warm summer evening in Greece. There were few people, or scholars should I say, and they were used to be known as philosophers at that time. They observed the night skies. They wondered what it is. They wondered why it is. and they were imagining all different sorts of explanation to tell people, to tell themselves, like why they see stars, why they revolve around over their head, why they change their places. Yes, there were 5 bright stars which used to change their positions in the backdrop of other stars. They called it planets. Planet is a Greek word which means wanderer. So those stars used to wander around our night sky, and this is how the knowledge of astronomy began. But we have to see how universe, its stories have played a role in the history of our civilization and how we have advanced through the phases. There was this one white line stretching from horizon to horizon. This was the most prominent shape or figure, I must say, in our night sky. There were people who were puzzled at the existence of it. They could not fathom what is actually happening, why it is existing, what is the source of that white line. So they created a story. They told people that when the Greek god Zeus came with the young Hercules to Mother Hera, and when Mother Hera tried to feed him, that line was formed, and it was known as Milky Way, because a mother is trying to feed his child, and that is the white line stretching across the sky. That's how it came to be known as the Milky Way, and it was passed on from generation to generation. But as you see, stories are not just a mere entertainment medium, or it is something which you do in your leisure time. Stories were the source of knowledge. It was the legacy system, how you pass on your knowledge from one generation to another generation, so that either it could be contradicted or either it could be verified. The knowledge of Milky Way, which was passed from generation to generation, it took 3000 years for us to realize that that is not just a white line stretching across our sky. That is our home, that is our home galaxy, which we call Milky Way in the honor of that story. And later on, when Hubble telescope was launched in its orbit, and we came to know that this is not the only galaxy which we have. There are the 2 trillion galaxies in our known universe which we could see now. So you see, the one simple line which led us to the knowledge of 2 trillion galaxies in our known universe. I would like to draw your attention to this one thing which has been missing from our education, or what we say in our pattern of teaching. It is imaginations. Now if we wonder, what if those people who looked at that white line and never imagined what it is, so would we be knowing about it today? That is a question which I would like to ponder upon and found its answer somewhere. Now there is another story which I would like to tell. If you have gazed upwards towards sky in any summer evening, you could see a very distinctive shape. It looks like Scorpio. Yes, the very same Scorpio, the animal which we see, it is very venomous and we are afraid of it. But if you see a cluster of stars, they are forming the shape of this Scorpio. It is widely known and it is regarded as something auspicious in many of the mythologies and many of the cultures. There is this Scorpio in summer sky, and if you have looked at eastern horizon during winter after the sunset, then you could see 3 distinct stars are in a row. Just beneath that row you could see 2 other bright stars, and above that row there are some 4 or 5 stars which are forming a shape that looks like a man. The Greeks also observed it and they called it Orion. Orion, the great hunter, which is also known as Kalpurush Taramandal in Hindi. Orion was a great hunter. According to Greek stories, he once decided to kill off every animal on the planet Earth. But Mother Earth didn't like it. But she could not do it. She could not do anything about it. What she could do? One day, looking at the grief-stricken Mother Earth, a Scorpio went and did sting that Orion, and that made Mother Earth very happy. So she pleaded Zeus to place the Scorpio in our sky so that it could chase down the Orion. So if you see, it was noted, it was observed by our forefathers, by ancient civilizations, that whenever there is a Scorpio in our sky, there would be no Orion, and if there is Orion, there would be no Scorpio. So they are constantly chasing each other, and this was also told as a story. Orion, the great hunter, is being chased down by Scorpio. Later on, when we had again the Hubble telescope, we came to know that these 2 clusters of stars are placed on the either end of our universe. It's like if one is on north, the other one is on south. So we could not see both of them at once in our sky. They did not know it, but they found a way to tell this knowledge, to pass on this knowledge, and they imagined the shape, they imagined the story, and they wanted their children to know that there is something which we cannot find, but you must try to do something about it. Now, if we move forward in time and come back to the 15th century, there was this one man which we must have all heard of. Ironically, he wanted to be a priest and he joined a monastery, and later on he became the center of conflict with the greatest religious authority of the world at that time. Yes, I'm talking about the great Galileo Galilei. He wanted to be a priest, he joined a monastery. So one fine evening he was in a monastery looking at the ceiling, and there was this chandeliers, and he observed that no matter what's the size or the weight of those chandeliers, if a wind comes, they will shift from their position and they will take the same time to settle down. So he immediately rushed to his home, he tied different weights from a string and experimented, and then he realized that no matter what is the mass of the pendulum, this time period will be same. If you disturb it, those two pendulums which have the same string length will take the same time to come back to their initial position. And Galileo was a great man. He imagined a lot of things which were not imagined by the people of that time. There was a recent discovery in Netherlands. A lens maker observed that if two different kinds of lens are placed at a certain distance apart, they produce a magnified image. Galileo imagined, what if it could magnify the distant object, and is there a possibility that it could magnify the objects which we see in our heavens as it is known at that time? He thought, I must take it in my hand, and he was a great mathematician. He did some calculations, he performed some observations, and then he glued two lenses on either end of a tube, and he pointed the tube towards moon. By doing so, he became the first man to observe the surface of a celestial object. And this was not the only thing which he has done. He actually opened a whole new regime of science, the space exploration. The age of space began with Galileo and his telescope, which will never end. As we see, the James Webb telescope, which will be launched next year, and we are hoping that it will unravel the mysteries which are still hidden from us. Now Galileo pointed his telescope towards another object. It was Jupiter at the planets. But all those stars which were in the vicinity of Jupiter were the same shape objects, same diminutive objects even in his telescope, but Jupiter was enlarged. It was looking like a big sphere, and there was something wonderful happening around Jupiter. It was followed by 4 tiny stars, and Galileo imagined, why would stars follow a planet, as it was well known that Jupiter is a planet. So why would stars follow a planet? It just took him a week or two to realize that those are not stars, that is a planet, and those stars which are following Jupiter are actually its moon. So we discovered 4 moons around Jupiter. Those were Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto. And as we know now, we have around 672 moons. Those are revolving around Jupiter, and the list is constantly increasing. So Galileo's imagination took us to the place where we are now. Galileo also pointed his telescope towards Saturn. As we all know, Saturn is a ringed planet, but Galileo was limited by the technology of his time. So when he observed the Saturn, those rings appeared to him as like it is having ears. So he noted in his notebook that this planet is having ears. Later on, in 16th century, Giovanni Cassini came. He imagined, he realized, he thought there must be something going on with this wonderful planet. A planet cannot have ears. He built a telescope, and when he observed, he found out that those are not ears as he had imagined. Those are rings, and actually not a single ring. Those are different rings made up of different rocks-like structure, and there is division between 2 set of rings, and that division is known as Cassini division in the honor of that man. Later on, when NASA sent a probe to study Saturn and moon around it, the name of that spacecraft was Cassini spacecraft, and it was operational till 2017. The Cassini told us many things about Saturn, like how those rings are made up of tiny objects which are ranging from 5 centimeter to 5 meter. It is made up of dust, dirt and ice particles. The best thing which was discovered by Cassini was the traces of water in the form of ice on the largest moon of Saturn, the Titan. Or if you have seen the movie Avengers, it is the home of Thanos. So maybe someday we would be living on Titan, as it is having the resources which will be needed after a billion years when our sun will be turned into a red giant. Now moving on to the Cassini, there was a British man. He imagined something which was going to be proved very beneficial for all of us later on. He imagined, what if I create a map of stars? What if I map those objects, those stars, those celestial bodies on a map, so that if whenever wants to see anything at any point of year, he simply need to look at my map, not at the sky. So he built a very large telescope. It was the greatest of that time, and he was observing the universe. He actually created the map of our galaxy, which is 70% accurate with the as compared to modern observations. So while observing those stars, he saw that there is this one star which is changing its position in the backdrop of other stars. It was moving constantly day by day. He thought it must be a meteor, because as we all know, the meteors keep changing their positions. But later on, his calculations proved that it is not a meteor, it's a planet. That was the first planet to be discovered by a man. The humankind discovered a planet in March 1776. It was done by Sir William Herschel. He named it Uranus. So Uranus, actually, if you see, the seventh planet in our solar system, was the first planet to be discovered by mankind. And this is how our journey is progressing. Now if we come to the modern science, or the latest things which have happened recently, you must all be familiar with the name of great Albert Einstein. Yes, the great Albert Einstein, who won the Nobel Prize for photoelectric effect, who gave us the theory of relativity. What if I tell you, in anecdotes, or as the legend states, when Einstein was a kid, he wanted to ride a light wave. Yes, he was trying to ride a light wave so that he could go beyond our universe and see and observe things which are not there. Later on, when it was found out that light is not just made up of wave, it is also made up of particles. Light has a dual nature, but he imagined that yes, I could write a light wave and I could do some wonderful things. So I would like to conclude this session with one quote from our beloved Albert Einstein, as he said, imagination is more important than knowledge. But as I see, imagination is what we are lacking in our current educational system. I think it's time we inculcate, we incorporate imagination in our system and teach our children or our students to imagine things which are not there and give us something which has never been given before. Thank you all.